Once again, welcome to our book review, the Pan-African Book Review Club, where we review the book Defeating Dictators by Dr. George Ayittey. And today we want to look at why some revolutions succeed. Welcome once again to all members who are present with us, those joining us for the first time, those who will be listening to our recording, those who have been out for a long time. Full most welcome. And yes, let's engage our mind a bit in some 1.5 hours so that we can critically have something from this text. So as usual, we will call on members, any member who is willing, to read for us the subheading. Everything under this subheading, why some revolutions succeed. Then once we are done, we can come back and start sharing our thinking for the entire time that will be left for us. So anybody who has ability to see what I've shared and able to read, let me know so that you can start the reading and I'll be scrolling the page for you. Welcome all once again. Anybody who is capable or who is able to see what I'm sharing and might wish to read for us?
I'll have a go, but I'm on a phone, so okay.
Okay, I can equally read, Sister Chimu, if you are getting some challenges.
Okay, let me try. Why some
try in case you stop anywhere, I can come in. Is that okay, sister?
All right then. Okay. Why some revolutions succeed. A careful study of the causes of these revolutions and this author's own experience revealed that though the nature and circumstances surrounding despotic regimes may be different, 9 main factors or principles can be isolated. The trigger, the instigating group, the receptivity of the authoritarian regime to democratic change, the nature of the despotic regime, military junta, and civilian, auxiliary and helpful factors, the nature of the opposition strategy, the time factor, the cultural connection, demonstration effects. Okay. The successful revolutions usually began as massive street protests by the youth, often university students, that caught both the government and the established opposition political elite by surprise. The trigger was often steep hikes in taxes or in prices of basic necessities. Ghana, Poland in 1988, and Sudan, or some crude attempts by a despot to perpetuate himself in office, either through a fraudulent election, manipulation of the constitution, or some bold-faced attempt to impose a new political order in which the military dominated. Think of Ignatius Katu, Achempong of Ghana, Gafar Mohammed El Neriri of Sudan, Ferdinand Marcos of Philippines, Eduardo Shevardza of Georgia, Viktor Yanukovych of Ukraine, Pervez Musharraf of Pakistan, and Askar Akayev of Kyrgyzstan. Anyway, I've murdered all of them, so that's okay. There is the receptivity of the authoritarian regime to democratic change also influenced the character and course of the revolution. Where the regime was willing to accept change, the revolution tended to be non-violent, peaceful, and of short duration. Such was the case with former Soviet republics, which formed the Commonwealth of Independent States, and the color revolutions, with the exception of Romania and Yugoslavia, which were more violent and protracted. The former Soviet republics broke away peacefully from the former Soviet Union because the communist apparatchiks had already accepted the need for reform. In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev had introduced glasnost and perestroika restructuring, which resulted in the signing and is that signing or singing? The singing and velvet revolutions. Similarly, Africa's village revolutions were successful. It moved me. Where are you? Okay. Village revolutions were successful and peaceful because the ruling elites had accepted the need to reform the ramshackle political system, even though there were few street protests. However, where the autocratic regime was reluctant, recalcitrant, or unwilling to accept reform, revolutions turned confrontational and bloody, and street protests were brutally crushed. East Germany 1953, Hungary 1956, Czechoslovakia 1968, China, Tiananmen Square 1989, Romania 1989, Ghana 1995, Georgia 2003, Ukraine 2004, Kyrgyzstan 2005, Ethiopia 2005, Lebanon 2005, Pakistani 2008, Zimbabwe 2008 are examples. Equally important was the nature of the despotic regime. The military variety tends to be more ruthless than the civilian counterparts. This distinction is important because the strategies required to fight a military junta are different from those needed for a civilian regime. Recall that it takes an institution to fight another institution. For example, the civil service, the judiciary, and the media. Civil servants were on strike in Ghana 1978 and 1979, and in Benin 1989, helping topple military dictators. The judiciary went on strike in Pakistan from March 2007 to August 2008, ending martial military dictatorship. The media, in the form of FM radio stations, became active in Ghana in 2000. The most potent weapon against any military junta is a civil service strike. Shut down the civil service, and any military regime will collapse. There are not enough soldiers to replace the civil servants. A civil service strike paralyzes the government, and as in Ghana and Sudan, can lead to palace coups. But new military rulers then come under intense pressure to return the country to civilian. Democratic rule as happened in Ghana 1979, Niger 1996, Nigeria 1998, Ivory Coast 2000, and Guinea 2009. Even then, auxiliary factors can be critical when the ruling regime is adamantly resistance to change. Among these helpful factors are the following: unity of opposition forces. No single individual, group, or political party can fight an entrenched dictator alone. An alliance of opposition forces is needed to unite against a common enemy. This cannot be emphasized enough. Further, the opposition must be broad-based, not confined to the urban areas or restricted to certain professional religions. Hold on. Okay. Where am I? Professional religions, sectarian and tribal groups. And the message must be very clear. Freedom. It is not a cause to be monopolized by a sectarian group. In Poland, for example, Solidarity was broad-based with 9 million members. Such was also the case in successful revolutions discussed above. Can someone take over? My battery is, I need to connect my phone. Hello?
Can anyone take over? Thank you, Sister Chisomo.
Yeah, so I can help.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The aid of an auxiliary institution. In the 1980s, the Roman Catholic Church played an instrumental role. In the 1980s, the Roman Catholic Church played an instrumental role in Poland, thanks to the influence of Pope John Paul II. And in the Philippines, when Cardinal Archbishop of Manila, James Sin, urged the people to go to the defense of the rebel officers, and they responded. The media, especially independent bloggers, was crucial in the color revolutions. Czechoslovakia, Georgia, and Ukraine. In the Philippines, the role played by the Radio Veritas and Radio Bandido was widely acclaimed. We have already noted the role played by the FM radio stations in Ghana. In the Philippines, President Francisco Nimenzo stated that without Radio Veritas, it would have been difficult, if not impossible, to mobilize millions of people in a matter of hours. Similarly, an account of the event said that Radio Veritas, in fact, was our umbilical cord to whatever else was going on. The judiciary played its independent and professional role in Georgia in 2003, when the Supreme Court annulled the first round-off election and ordered a second one that, under intense scrutiny, became more transparent. In Pakistan, the judiciary led the frontal assault on Musharraf's military dictatorship in 2007. Support of professional bodies is crucial. Lawyers, trade unionists, teachers, and others went on strike to support street demonstrators in Ghana in 1978, Sudan in 1985, Tunisia in 2011. Even bankers joined the protest in Ghana. A rift among the ruling elite. The emergence of rebels or reformers often helped the opposition forces. Noteworthy are Mikhail Gorbachev in the Soviet Union, 1985, Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas in Mexico, 1987, Gusitano in Ghana, 1996, Absalam Abubakar in Nigeria, 1998, Viktor Yushchenko in Ukraine, 2004, and the National Democratic Party, NDP, in Egypt, 2011. A split in the security forces. The game was usually over a despot when his own security forces were split. Philippines, 1986. Romania in 1989, Nigeria in 1998, Georgia 2003, Guinea 2009, Tunisia 2011. Within the Philippine military and the police disillusioned junior officers silently convened their grievances. Within the Philippine military and the police, disillusioned junior officers silently conveyed their grievances. This led to the formation of the Armed Forces Movement, RAM, Soldier of the Filipino People, SFP, and Young Officers Union, U. RAM, which was led by the graduates of the Philippine Military Academy class of 71, Lieutenant Colonel Gringo Honasan, Lieutenant Colonel Victor Batak, and Lieutenant Colonel Eduardo Caponan, found an ally and mentor in the Defense Secretary Juan Pons and Real. In Tunisia, senior army chiefs refused to fire on protesters. Neutralized security forces. In Georgia, the security forces were either neutralized or charmed with roses, hence the Rose Revolution. In Kyrgyzstan, the security forces were overwhelmed by the presence of huge crowds of people, leading large numbers of people officers to switch sides. In Tunisia, the military sympathized with the street protesters. In Egypt, the riot police were outwitted by the youth movement, and the crowd at Tahrir Square managed to charm the soldiers who had been sent in a column of tanks to crush them. The nature of the opposition's tactics also plays a huge role in success or failure. In Egypt, even though they were not initially united, opposition forces executed some brilliant tactical maneuvers and were strategic in their planning. They took over government buildings, police stations, state televisions, and airports. Few people have had the stomach for an extended protest that entails an extraordinary amount of sacrifice in terms of effort, time, and lost income. Enthusiasm to demonstrate in the streets quickly fades or wanes with the passage of time, which is the opposition force's worst enemy. The Romanian Revolution lasted 7 days. The Rose Revolution, 21 days. The Orange Revolution, 34 days. The Tulip Revolution, 6 days. The Jasmine Revolution, 28 days. And the Revolution in Egypt, 18 days. As we shall discuss in the next chapter, the demand for democracy needs to be framed in a way that does not feed into the despot's paranoia. This call must be couched in a cultural medium so as to look indigenous or homegrown and establish a cultural connection, for example.
No, comrade, can you hear me?
Yes, comrade, I can hear you.
No, let's pause there. I think we have run a lot. Let's pause there because I never knew this subtopic is very heavy. It's too much. So let's first of all pause there. Do a review of whatever we've read so far. What do we learn from it? What can you say about it? What comments do you have, or what thinking can you share? Because the author has been giving several examples and discussing several things that will allow us to first of all think about them and then share what you think about them. So far, all that you've seen in regards to these 9 issues, whether you have a comment on these 9 triggers for redeem for change, and then when you go down to the examples of those successful revolutions, the quotations he's giving, and most important, this element again, where he says that the institutions cannot fight one another, and it goes ahead and now the civil servant, judiciary, media has done that. And also these factors now that is giving in the unity of opposition forces, the aid on auxiliary institutions, Then it talks about the rift among the ruling elite. Then it talks about the split in the security forces. Then mm, mm, neutralize security forces as well, and also the role of opposition. So let's share our thinking in regards to all those that we've read so far. Anybody want to come in, give a comment, share what you think, or anything of that sort? Anybody want to come in to say anything? This is a free class, so just go ahead, or you'll call names. So I'll go around and call your name and ask you if you have anything you want to say. Then I go to the next person in that order.
I'll have a go.
Yeah, please start, sister.
Now, as I'm reading this and I'm thinking some people in my country must have read this book back to back to trigger what happened in 2020 and 2019. Is it 2019 and 2020 when Malawi had the rerun? There are a lot of elements being mentioned in there, the alliance, the judiciary, and the media, who just stepped in and did whatever they did and made sure the opposition took over, having an alliance and working with the judiciary and the media. But as to whether this was a success, it's doubtful because one term later, the people decided. I suppose that the general public is different from the triggers. Is that right? The opposition and the judiciary, and because the general public doesn't understand these things, they're just influenced. So once the
Sister
thing was
Chisomo?
successful. Hello?
Sister Chisomo?
Hello?
Yeah, if you look at the paragraph that starts after those listing of those factors, the author started saying that successful revolution usually began with massive street protests by the youth. So probably something like the youth element becomes more of like the triggers in the street protest. So that street protest can be considered as more of part of the triggers.
No, in our case, it wasn't the youth. It was the adults influencing the youth to go into the streets. So mainly it was adults from the opposition, and then using the judiciary to pass laws, change things, and then the media to just do the propaganda for them. Then we didn't have much social media going on, and the youth it was not the youth as it happens today, as it happened in Kenya. It was literally adults from the opposition, politicians themselves going on the street. So in the end, they used the judiciary to then say, yeah, legally this is right, legally this is right, legally what the winner did was wrong. In fact, the interpretation of majority has been wrongly used since 1964, so we need to change it to mean 50+1 so that the other guy doesn't win anymore, because every time they contested, he won and won and won, so they wanted to get rid of him. So using the judiciary to interpret the law differently and form this alliance, 9 parties against 1 person. So that's how they won, just by a little margin anyway. I think it was about 5% or something like that. So it's interesting that people do sit and read these books, check how the other people did it, and they use the same system. But like I said, the general public then realized we were hoodwinked, we were lied to. We need the previous president back. So they insisted, we want the previous one back. If he's not put on the ballot, we are not voting. So he had to come back from his retirement, and he won by by a very, very wide margin, by a landslide. So that's where we are today. As to whether that will be successful either, because at the end of the day, it's again the civil servants that then implement whatever he's asking of the politicians. So if they are still not happy with him being there and they still want their old people, the outgoing government back, because it was easier to loot, so they might not help him succeed. That's me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sister Chisomo, for starting us off and also trying to lay the examples of what's going on in Malawi. Anybody want to go next? Anybody? Hello? We encourage discussion. So this is not just reading for purpose of reading. We encourage people to engage the text to share their thinking process so that we at least develop some level of consciousness. So anybody, or I'll go by my list. I usually go by my list. So let me go by my list now. In my list, after Sister Grace Chitomo is Brother Chris Mukasa. Brother Chris Mukasa, do you have anything to say in regards to what you've read so far on why some revolutions succeed, and especially some key points that are key areas that are pointed out? Brother Chris? Okay, it seems Chris can't hear me. Brother Philip, can you hear me? Philip? Sister Chisoma, am I audible?
Hello.
Hello, Sister Chisomo, can you confirm if I'm audible? Brother Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Brother Chris, are you able, Brother Philip, are you able to
Yeah,
go ahead?
yeah. Okay, so I'm new to this. So as I share, I would like the more experienced ones to correct me. But
No, Brother Philip,
yes,
let me put you into context. One,
yeah,
what you usually do is what you do on Thursdays. We read the author's text.
yeah,
Once you're done with the author's text, we ask members to
yeah.
share what they think about the author's text. Sometimes
Oh,
it's different with what you understand, because you are not
yeah.
here to learn for understanding purpose, but what do you
Wow.
think out of what the author is saying? Then you
Yeah,
give us your thinking. And when you share your thinking
yeah,
can never be wrong. It is your thinking. So nobody can judge your thinking. It's your thinking. So you are right to
oh,
share anything you think, and nobody should say that what you think is wrong. In the process of
oh,
us sharing our thinking, we then develop ability to start do what we start at least learning from each other's thinking, and that way we build some level of conscience together. So what you think and what I think and what other person thinks, in one way or the other, then help you learn or grow your level of thinking, what you call
okay,
consciousness. So feel free to share only that which you think, and nobody should
oh,
feel offended of what you think. Thank you. Please go ahead.
okay. So my thinking is around the word successful. So what is a successful revolution? And after they've gotten rid of the dictators, very good, they have gotten rid of the dictators. Have their lives been better? I mean, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, have their lives actually been better? I think that the dictators are dictators, but then they are also being dictated to by Western powers. And they, in addition to them personally being dictators, they are also being forced to adopt certain economic systems that bring hardship onto their people. If they resist the Western powers, we all know what happens to them. And so I think that just changing the dictator has not really helped the people, has not improved their lives. We've been changing the dictators for a long time, many years, and we are still in the same economic quagmire. What will change our economic quagmire is what we are doing right here, right now. That is Pan-African consciousness. And just to offer a simple example, where we begin to circulate our monies amongst ourselves. Right now, we've got 1.6 billion Africans in Africa and maybe 2 billion around the world. All of them are, draining out their money into Western economies and Arab economies. It's never going to, our economy is never, both the leaders and the followers. Until we begin to circulate our monies around ourselves, we are always going to be poor. And that is the economic structure, the new colonialism, the new type of slavery that took over from the old. It was planned. That was the exact plan, and we are still working to it. And so changing the dictators is good. It's good. Because once you change the dictator, sometimes the human atrocities reduce. But we shouldn't forget that some of the dictators are financed and militarized by foreign powers. I have a serious problem with Africans who analyze Africa as a standalone continent. It's an intermingling and an interference from several powers, from European, from American, from Arabic, from Israeli, now from China, India. We have to have a proper picture of what is happening. Otherwise, we're just going to do band-aid and first aid solutions. Changing the dictator takes a lot of effort. People die. People are tortured, their fingernails are pulled out, their brains are crushed. Steve Biko was just, I don't know what kind of beating he was giving, but it is only band-aid in the economic, in the worldwide scheme of things. Fundamentally, we want to be creating our own free Africa. And I think one simple example is to circulate our monies amongst ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. I think you've touched on the crucial part of this conversation. One is on whose definition is it successful. Nkrumah, on his book Consciousness, defined revolution in two ways. The revolution is actually the fight against the old system, or the old, and the contest for the new. The fundamental element of a revolution is and should be around the welfare of the people, what you call the living condition of the people. And you say also very important thing, that after the removal of a dictator, what then follows? And the critical examples have been across the continent, and we've discussed them before. For example, Zimbabwe removed Mugabe. Is Zimbabwe better today? Other countries, for example, Bashir was removed. Is it better today? But when you look, for example, the junta revolution that takes place in Burkina Faso, for example, are we seeing or hearing of some fundamental drastic changes? Some fundamental drastic changes. So, for example, you get to understand that then in Burkina Faso, for example, Now we can see some clear changes. Often do we hear of such changes, even in so-called elections? Because sometimes we think that revolution is only the protest in the streets. How about in countries where there are change via ballot, for example? Because the continent of Africa continuously changed presidents. Now, how about even the places where the president has been changed? Is there anything fundamental in terms of the improvement of the welfare of the people? Then we can say the revolution was successful. And just to end there before I bring another person, case for study is Kenyan situation in 2022. And I think Chris Mukasa is here and he probably is from Kenya. In 2022, the current president actually coined a narrative called the hustlers, who are the poor, going up against the dynasties, who are the rich. And that 2022 election, the people majority went out as the poor, going to vote out the rich. Now, it was successful that the president, the current president, who was not poor anyway, led the poor to change the dynasty, who was believed to be former president, former prime minister, the late one, and the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta. Now that he is in power, can the poor feel the success of that his leadership? And if the poor, who were then oppressed at that time, who felt that they are doing a revolution, cannot see any fundamental improvement in terms to their welfare, then you cannot call that revolution successful. Therefore, to us and what you're saying, successful revolution do not end by successfully removing a leader. But the successful revolution must transcend beyond change of leader to change or improvement in the welfare of the people in such a nation. That's what I wanted to say. So then let me allow other members to come in. Unless you want to add something on that before I go to the next member, Brother Philip.
No, thank that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Brother Chris, are you able now to hear me? If not, I'll go to Brother Kofi Asante. Brother Kofi, do you have anything to share with us? What do you think in regards to this?
Yes, thank you, comrade. I think the point where they made mention of the role of the civilians in removing dictators, when the civilians strike or when they engage in any mass action, it affects the success of it causes the dictators to have an unstable economy, which may likely lead to their exit. So in hearing that, I realized that, well, a conscious citizenry or civilians who are politically conscious will have a bigger role or will play a good role in making sure that a dictator leaves office. And so it is activities like this and other activities that make sure that the African citizenry are more politically conscious is very important. And so I appreciate some of this conversation. That is one thing I took from the reading. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, comrade. I'm trying to reshare the screen again. The author actually talked about civil service. And they say that when the civil service sometimes go on strike, it can lead to a successful toppling down of a dictator. And in fact, he talks about the junta revolution. And he says, for example, the military, there's not enough military officers in any country that can then replace the civil service. And I think that's very important. Then. Have you ever imagined if the civil servants in your country could go on strike today? Would the government run? So sometimes part of the few or shortcut routes to sometimes bring a bad government down is just by civil servants going on strike. And I think you have seen how governments then tend to treat teachers strike, doctors strike, and all these trade union strike. They take them very seriously because they know that if the doctors today strike for 1 or maybe 6 months, will there be any service rendered? Then the citizens will come out and go and just remove the government or top of the government. So I think what you are raising is even beyond the working class, but the consciousness of the working class. And that takes us to analyze how do we then get the working class? How do the government employ civil servants? Do they employ conscious civil servants? Or do they employ people who are just in there for salaries and nothing more? And do our civil servants sometimes conscious enough to demand some proper or right or necessary services for them? Or only until it touches their salary? So I think that's also a very important thing that we need to look at. The quality of our civil servants. Do you want to come back on anything before I go to the next person? Brother Kofi?
Thank you, brother, comrade. Your comments have helped shape my understanding of what I was saying earlier. So I thank you. There is nothing more to add.
Thank you, brother. Let's go to Brother Mauni. I know you joined us in the midst of our reading, but do you have anything to share with us? Are you in a position to share your thinking with us?
So for me, like dictatorship has really caused a lot of problem, but I think currently, it is not even about dictatorship. If you should come to today's time, it's about like individuals forming cabal to loot, the nation or whichever community they find themselves in. Now that is what is trending now. The current, the new normal that is going on now is that, okay, let's form a cabal and see how we can actually steal from the country. And also, it's not about even some dictatorship. Dictators actually, should have still. However, now they've even moved. They've moved from that mentality to this. So what are we doing about such individuals who come together to loot and share in terms of this current time?
Very important question you're asking, Brother the King. If they are coming together to loot from us, what stops us from coming together to remove them? And that's, I think, the first point of what we call the unity of opposition forces. Because the opposition forces is beyond an opposition party. And as you have realized, the author started by saying that no single individual, group, or even single political party can fight an entrenched dictator alone. And therefore, he says, an alliance of opposition forces is needed to unite against a common enemy. In this case, you have identified a common enemy in your explanation. What stops us also to unite against our common enemy? I know one of the things you always say, and they always say, that then we'll start looking at who we are in terms of tribes, in terms of class, or those other things. But when they loot from us, they don't loot from a specific tribe. The looting affects the entire country. And therefore, the answer to your question on what we should do rise to the first recommendation. The author says we need to unite the opposition forces. Brother the King, you want to come back?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, you got cut off.
I was asking whether you want to come back to whatever I've said.
Yeah, so the unity aspect. You see, let's say Ghana, for instance. I have always been saying that when you realize that when you're trying to even mobilize like-minded people, they have not even really gotten to that level. And there's in the beginning of this particular, in the middle of it, you made mention of something that we are building consciousness. That means it's not something that is like everybody is already at that level of consciousness. That it's something that we have to build on. But if we are not deliberately working on that, it becomes very difficult to even get like mind to unite them towards a particular goal. And I think that is what we are facing. But the good news is the people are waking up at that level, small. But I fear that by the time we may even get to that level where we know that we have to take that conscious decision and become that vanguard towards, the progress of our continent, probably we may not have the resources and the things that we have today. And that is the only challenge sometimes I face.
Yeah, Brother the King, you're also raising a very important point. Remember, Kwame Nkrumah says and talks about mass consciousness. I think Nkrumah in Africa Machine talks about that the revolution must be owned by the masses. The biggest task to any opposition forces and people of us who are proactive is to conscientize the masses. Of course, it is not an easy process, but it is the only safeguard to a revolution. Now look, for example, a case study on what happened in Burkina Faso, for example. Let me just use it.
Yeah.
Before Traore came in, there were not many people who wanted or knew about Traore, or even who would wish for that so-called coup to happen. But when Traore came in, and in the process of his leadership, have you seen how many people in this country were now to defend him? Not even in this country, beyond even the borders. Therefore, consciousness of the citizenry might not be like an education process of class 1 to university and then you graduate. Consciousness of the citizenry is about access to the right information so that then the citizenry are informed. Most of the time, the citizenry are misinformed. And that's why sometimes they might even think that they're participating in a popular revolution, just that then they might be working for the benefit of some hidden hand somewhere. And that's why they topple a dictator, but it happens that that was not even a dictator, it even was a better one. Look for case example, what happened in Libya. Some people still view Gaddafi as a dictator. But now that some of us are getting to be aware of what he did, could you still be comfortable to call Gaddafi a dictator? And could you still be willing to participate in his overthrow? So the biggest thing, and the biggest instrument, as I think what Steve Biko said, that the greatest weapon or the potent weapon in the hand of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. So if the mind of the citizen can have the right information, then that information will give them power to go out. Take case example of what happened in Kenya, the June 2024 protest. The reason why majority of the young people in the street is because they were aware of the content of the finance bill and how it was going to affect their life. Now, consciousness is one thing, but purpose-driven and targeted consciousness is very important. You see, even when people do evangelism of preaching, they tell you why you should accept Jesus Christ as your personal savior. So they don't just tell you about Jesus Christ. They give you the consequences of your inaction. And therefore, we must be very clear to conscientize the people with the consequences of their inaction. And as I say, sometimes it may not take a lot of millions. Sometimes just take one event and people are up. And I see Sister Chisoma had this up. And before she come in, I'll try her also to put into this. She says that the people of Malaya have decided to return back a retired president. Do you think why have they done that? It means they have seen and understood what is wrong. And they think, no, that guy I think can do what is right. Let him come back. If they were not aware or have opened their eyes to what is wrong, they could have not called for change. But let me pause there, Sister Chisomo. But before Sister Chisomo come in, Brother The King, do you have anything to come back on?
No, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Sister Chisomo?
Yes, no, what is being discussed here is exactly what happened in Malawi. When the last speaker says, what's happening today is about looting. So the two people fell out in the last government because I want to be in power. I now want to have a chance to have all this and amass my wealth and whatever. So he then influences other people, make an alliance to get rid of this one. But again, like here they're saying, if it's a revolution, you want freedom. You want freedom from the dictator. So if the person is he really a dictator, or you're just coming in to mobilize, to then come in, do what you have to do? And when they got into power, and they succeeded to get rid of the first guy, then they fell out because there's now a scramble for whatever is there. So they start fighting each other. The whole alliance of 9 parties starts falling apart. Other people leaving, the ones that are there are fighting. Oh, but we agreed you're going to lead the first 5 years, I'm going to lead the next 5 years. That was the agreement. And the other one is saying, where is the agreement? We don't remember having that agreement. And they fought and fought. And meanwhile, money is just disappearing. All they did was loot. So when people then realized, oh my God, we are losing everything. We no longer have, the money is just devaluing it. The value devaluing and devaluing. We now realize that it wasn't even devaluing as in devaluing, but they were taking the dollars, taking them on the black market, and that became the official rate, because they are diverting the dollar to the extent that the country didn't have a single dollar left to even buy anything. And any money that came in or whatever, they just took, because they probably knew they're not coming back. So they made sure they took whatever they took. By the day they left, that state house that the president lived in was smeared with feces and whatnot. Just I don't know what these people have come to. But people realized these people were no good in the first place. Was then that a revolution? But at the time, they were told it's a revolution. This one is a dictator. He's a bad man. He's this, he's that. And then when people saw the next group, they thought, oh my God, we want the last person back. They tried to castigate the last person. People did not believe them. And then they said, oh, he's old, he's 85. And people said it doesn't matter, even if he's on a stretcher, even if he doesn't come out of that house, we still want him back. And that's what happened. So, yeah. And it wasn't young people. That's the thing. It wasn't young people. It's the young people now who then said, no, let's go back. Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, Sister Grace, for highlighting that as well. And I think we need also to take into consideration, as I go to Brother Eugene, on this second element of the aid of an auxiliary institution. Now here, particularly the author talks about the church and the media. And I don't know what also some of us think about whether the church and the media has contributed to some demand for justice or good governance in their country, and how then they are powerful. Because you see, one thing we cannot wish away is the population the church controls. In any country, almost 80 or 70% of them are religious. So whether they belong to a church or a mosque, those churches or mosques control a lot in terms of the population. And therefore, if they can use it properly, they can aid towards the fight for what is good governance, justice, or anything else. If they use it wrongly, or if they are silent, they can also perpetuate that bad governance. And the second thing is the media. Whether social, and I want us to look at the impact of social and current media, like what happened in the protest of Kenya 2024, whether it is local radio stations or the TV station, they also have power. In Kenya, for example, one of the newspaper house has been very vocal and very fundamental in the changes. So, Brother Eugene, please come in and share your thinking as well.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm at work, so I was on mute for quite a bit. But I just want to chime in on what you just said, media, church, and with regards to being conscious. So I think it all boils down to one thing, right? You cannot be conscious of anything if you don't have an identity. And to me, the more I look at things, Brother Philip started with, Ghana and the Galamsey. Which people would pollute the very earth that sustains them, the water and the land? Only a person who has no identity. Only a person who doesn't know who he or she is in relationship to the cosmos in which we find ourselves. Unfortunately, in my opinion, that is where the African mindset is. There is a lack of identity. As a result of that, you fall for anything. If you bring the church or the media into it, they don't have any identity. They don't know who they are. They are just existing. So if you don't have that core value of identity and how you relate to this cosmos of ours, what kind of conscience can you have? So the more I delve into it, that is the core of the African problem. There is a loss of identity, and as a result of that, we fall for anything. If I can establish that identity and my relationship to the cosmos, everything else will fall in place and I'll start fixing the mind. So I go back in the case of Ghana. That's where I'm from, right? And I hate to say this, that my hopes are dashed because if I do not know my connection to the land and the water that sustains me to the point where I'll pollute it with mercury just to get some money from gold today, which I'm going to use to cure diseases tomorrow. I am sorry. You cannot go anywhere. You cannot elevate yourself as a person if you are not aware of this. And I think that is where the problem lies. That's my contribution.
So thank you very much. I think you're bringing the element of self-identity. And self-identity is also part of self-consciousness. So, because the progress, what Nkrumah says, and welcome, Brother Coco. Thank you for being around with us. The Nkrumah says in chapter 4, I think, or 5, that it starts with individual positive action. An individual self-consciousness and that identity, if you have multiple of individual ones, self-conscious of who they are and what they need, they can easily form a unity or a union that can then lead to some change. But in a society where not many are conscious, only the conscious rise. And that's what Nkrumah described as positive and negative action in a society. And he says it very clearly, I'll just say it briefly, that in order to be a change in a society, the positive actions must outweigh the negative actions, which means the positive forces must outweigh the negative forces, which means if you have so many people who are self-conscious and self-aware, then they can then lead to some change, rather than if you have so many people who are not self-conscious and self-aware, because then they will not lead to any bigger change. So I think it also connects to that. Everything must start from an individual level. And that is very important. That each individual in the process must be able to know themselves. What the Rastafarians say, know thyself, is very important. Do you want to come up, Brother Eugene, or before I go to the next person?
Can I ask him a question?
Okay, Sister Chisomo.
Just to elaborate on the identity. When he says something about identity, can you just explain that a little more?
So who am I as a person, right? If I know who I am and my connection, right, to my very existence, this cosmos that I live in, right? If I know exactly who am I, why should I pollute? I'm using that example of Galamsey, illegal mining and the devastation to the environment. So if you know who you are and your connection to the environment, why would you pollute the very water body that sustains you, the very earth that sustains you? Why would you pollute it? So if that foundation is not established, you are just existing, right? And there's no foundation for you to build on. And that is how I see the issue, right? With the core African mentality. It's like we've lost that identity of knowing who we are and building from that foundation. So anything just goes. That is where I am coming from. How to reestablish that identity? You probably need some leadership to do that, right? You're born into a family, and that family is what molds you to give you some form of identity and how you connect with it, right? Collectively, I don't think we're losing that. So that is where I'm coming from when I talk of identity.
Thank you. I think we can engage you further on that. But I think, Brother Coco, you've been running this program with Elder Mafole on March on our self-rediscovery. I think that's it, what Brother Eugene is trying to talk about. Brother Coco?
Yeah,
Sorry
yes,
for
brother.
my impromptu.
Yeah, it's important to know thyself. You use the right words, because as even Marcus Garvey said, our ancestor Marcus Garvey said, a nation without knowledge of its past and culture is like a tree without roots. And once you are a tree without roots, you are blowing up with the wind. You can blow anywhere where the wind carries you. So hence why it's easy for the Africans who have been colonized, their language taken, their culture destroyed, to think that they are now whites, or they are English, or they are French. So it becomes easy for them to be manipulated, easy for them to be exploited. They always do anything that the colonizer wants because they want to be associated with that colonizer. They don't know where they come from. They don't know the richness of their heritage or the rich history of the people where they come from. Hence, they are not even willing to associate with those people. They are willing to associate with the people who they have been taught that they are the best. That's why it's common knowledge that white supremacy has come in the case of the colonized people, and everyone is looking towards white colonizers. It's white supremacy, nothing else, nothing short. And that's what Christianity has also come in and taught the people with those actors that they have brought in to represent the blonde hair, blue-eyed Jesus Christ. They brought those actors. They are mostly people we know in the West here. And the Africans associate with those people because they have lots and lots of them have them in their homes. I think that's what my brother was trying to say. I'm sorry I arrived late, but I'm trying to sort of add to what he's saying. This comes from as the Dr. Mafule always says, it's the fear. The fear is implanted in our brains. There is that natural fight or flight that every human being has. But because of the excessive fear that we got as part of colonization, dehumanization, and enslavement, it means we never really achieve our true potential. Okay? It's easy for us to be fooled. It's easy for us to look for some comfort, short-term gains, and not look for the longer term in that sense. I hope it's clear.
No, thank you, Brother Coco.
And can I just then add to say, in terms of identity, again, I'll give a Malawian example where we have rules in our parliament that says the only language that can be used is English. And the explanation to that, there's a debate going on, like the whole campaign going on at the moment, that they should speak the language that people can hear them, the people who voted for them, because the majority of them don't understand English anyway. So the explanation is that, oh, they're doing it for the donors, whoever funds them. And also the other rule is that the men can only wear lounge suits and a tie. So you can't turn up in African attires and all your traditional stuff. And the other rule is the judges and the speaker and the clerks down there should wear the long white wigs. So when he talks about identity, I kind of thought that's probably what's happening with us. That's why it just becomes difficult to govern the real indigenous people, because you're using a system that doesn't relate to anything the voter is putting you there for. You go in there and you start speaking English and they can't hear you. Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. You've gone XML with this. I'd like to take the conversation back, but yes, if you wish Sister Chisomo to do much of this, look at the book by Dr. Kess, Isis Papers Keys to Color, when she deals with more of those psychology, and check what Traore did again. He decided to remove those so-called wigs. He decided to change the school uniform. And some people think that these are just very little things. But in terms of psychology, they're so deep. So even somebody just putting on a suit to appear in a formal meeting, they call it formal, might appear to be something ordinary. And somebody will say, how does that even contribute to development? So if I don't put on suits, does it mean how the country will develop? But those are just very subtle means. What you learn in the conscience, we call them subtle means of ideology. So they are very subtle means. And yes, they really affect us. But back to this conversation again, we are looking at various means of how then change can happen within the despotic ruling class. And one here is when the opposition forces unite. And two is when the churches and the media come together, and even including the judiciaries. And I will say for a case example is Kenya. The judiciary of Kenya has really tried to stop the government, really tried. Sometimes very hard. The lawyers union have also tried. The trade unionists in Kenya have actually been captured so much sometimes by the government. The teachers in this case are also maybe on strike one day, and then call the next day the government, and they stop it. And these are part of the few things that the author is saying. that those forces must unite. And then he says that the next thing is that sometimes for a change to happen, there's always a rift among the ruling elites. And the next one is the split within the dictators or the security forces. Now, I want us to comment on those few forces, for example. The split within the ruling elites, and then the split within the security forces. Anybody who like to share anything on that line? For sometimes changes might happen, and when the ruling elite have a division, and let's take back case in case study here is Kenya. The current president was a former president in the previous regime, a former deputy president in the previous regime. Let me say that he was a deputy president in the previous regime. Now, when he knew that they had their differences internally with the president, then they collided and then they had their own dispute. What happened is that he walked out of that government and came out to call himself a hustler. Then he galvanized the people against his president, then actually succeeded to become a president. Now, people might think that we have made a revolution. Now it's been very successful because we have removed the former president. But you forget that these were the same ruling elite. So it was their differences, and then brought them in, and they are back to power. Currently, the current president actually dismissed his former deputy president. His former deputy president who was working with him is now out leading the opposition against this current president. And people will go in election and remove the current president and put in maybe the forces supported by his former deputy, and people will say it's a revolution. So I think I'm getting something very important there. Then when you look at the split in security forces, sometimes when the security, and you have to analyze also this junta protest, sometimes you've seen in countries whereby it's junta after junta. We call them a junta government. It happened many times in Nigeria and I think in Ghana. This military government comes in, then the next military government overthrows them. Then you think that that was a revolution. It's a change in arm within the same military forces. But let me hear what you people think. Yaranunaki, let me start with you on this. I'll be sharing the book as a PDF in this our chat before we end. Yaranunaki or any other person who want to comment on those two specific subheadings, please feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead.
So this
Anybody?
is Eugene.
Yeah, Eugene, please go ahead.
Yeah, I will chime in on this one. So this is true, but it all boils down to the character of the people who want to lead. Okay, if you use, say, Ghana as an example, right? There was a rift in the ruling class in 1978 when Ignatius Kutua Champon was overthrown by, the second in command. And in 1979, Rawlings, who was a junior officer, right, overthrew the senior officers. He handed over power, and then he came back in 1981. And this time he entrenched himself. He was supposed to clean the system. So that was a revolution. He at least was visionary enough to realize that, okay, we cannot do this just with the military. So what did he do? He blended his government, a combination of military and civilians. Stayed in power for a good 20 years, right? Now the question is, did he leave power with the country better off than when the military leaders who were running it left it? They were overthrown for whatever reasons, right? Corruption, name it. Rawlings came in, entrenched himself, stayed in power. Matter of fact, he became a civilian and stayed in power, but it was nothing but an extension of more like a military rule per se, right? But when he was leaving, was a country better off than it was when the military was running it? And then fast forward to today. right? Will the average person say that the country is better off today than it was back in, say, like 1978 or 79? So it boils down to character of whoever these revolutionaries are, right? We may be emotional and, take over for whatever reason, take over power. But do they have the character, the fortitude to stick with the principles that made them take over in the long run? Or do they become corrupt? So experience, right, in a place like Ghana has made people disillusioned with what you call revolution. Because you stand on a platform and preach about what the ruling elite, the ruling junta, what they are doing. Now you get in there. Are you able to fix it? Or do you become corrupt? And if you become corrupt, what is it that is making you corrupt? What is it that people like us see from the outside that will make me want to get in only to become corrupt? That is a question that I ask myself all the time. That, there are so many brains. We've had leaders upon leaders, governments upon governments, finance ministers upon finance ministers. But the needle has not been moved. They all say one thing when they're outside. When they get in, sometimes they start very well. But towards the end, things fall apart. Does it fall apart from within? Or are there external forces contributing to it? I've always asked this question, right? Are there memoirs that some of these leaders can write for those of us left behind to read and understand what they actually face when they're behind the steering wheel? That's my contribution.
Oh, very heavy indeed. Brother Coco, please come in. I believe you might be able to help a bit and also to share your thoughts in this subtopic. Brother Coco?
Has everybody spoken?
Brother Coco was contributing to explanation of what you had asked. That's why I'm asking him to share his thinking on this. But if he's not in a position, because I don't see him, I'll ask Brother Nixon. I'd call Brother Anunnaki, who did not speak. So let me ask Brother Nixon, and then Brother Anunnaki or Brother Chris. Those are people I've called their name and they haven't. Brother Nixon, and let me know who is Nixon, please. Before Brother Coco comes in. Brother Nixon, do you have anything to share in regards to the text you've read? Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Jaranunaki? General? Okay. Brother Chris? Oh, Chris say he cannot be able to speak. Brother Coco, can you hear me? Oh, I can't hear anyone speaking. Those names have called several times.
Brother Coco says it's back in 5 minutes.
Okay. Now it means then the people who haven't spoken are not ready to speak, because I've called their names several times. Either they are not hearing us, or either they are in a place they are not able to speak. All those are possible. Permit me to look a bit at the questions raised by Brother Eugene on what then changed. And take case example, Brother Eugene. Look, for example, people like General Museveni. General Museveni came in as a revolutionary leader from the coup, popular one. He has stayed in power today for around 35 years or 38 years. They're still going for the 40th. If you ask the people of Uganda, some might not think that he's still revolutionary as he was. Some might have counter opinion that he's either a dictator now. Take the case example again for Rwanda. Paul Kagame. Paul Kagame has also been in power for a while, winning elections with almost 80% to 90%. He also came in as either the military or revolutionary process, not ready to leave. Of course, he has transformed the country. You see some development in Rwanda. Of course, there are issues surrounding it as well. At what cost? Suppressing the voices of opposition sometimes. And then you ask yourself again, who is sponsoring the opposition? Is it the voices of opposition or voices of the anti-Rwanda's government or anti-Kagame's government? But again, it's a balance of two things here, delicate balance. Does the means to improve the welfare of the people matter? Or we are only focused on the end product of the welfare of the people, by all means necessary? Those are also very fundamental questions. For example, some people may decide to suppress all voices and dissenting voices, torture people, put them in jail, do whatever if any opposing forces, and still serve their people and deliver services. Do you judge the services delivered, or do you also take into consideration the means to get those services? At what cost? But again, the question you've been asking yourself, this person was a good person, he came in. Look at the example Sister Chisomo is raising in Malawi. A former president was wanted back and been voted back. Now, if the system was to change him, I don't think the people could have called for him to be back. Take case example of your president in Ghana today. He's a former president, and people voted him back. If he was a bad person, or if the system had changed him, would the people still vote him again in? Or does it mean the people are the one who changed? These are some of very fundamental questions that sometimes we also have to look at. But really, what happened? Now, take as example again, the last one I want to give. I'll still go back to Sahel. Any of them, not Amas Bitraor, any of them, they're doing good work now, probably. Some might think it's bad work, some might have their own counter opinion. Of course, it's not sure that they might be good forever. But the question is, what really changed them? Is it something outside the system, or some deep, what some people believe in various countries, deep state? Or is it their personal ambition and interest that make them change? I know some people once said, power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. So yes, I'm still just adding my thought into the question you've asked by asking more questions that then can provoke our thought process to see how do we then clearly counter, or how do we clearly handle the question you raised. Anybody want to come in regards to this?
Yeah.
Brother Coco, when you're able to speak, let me know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who wanted to come in? Oh, well, Brother Coco,
Yeah,
wanted you to speak?
I'm here now. This is a very sensitive and crucial question I think you guys are asking. And I'm glad you talked about Museveni, because there's a video going around, which I'll share with you after this meeting, which shows that actually the police who shot the protesters in Tanzania were not the Tanzanian police or Tanzanian army, because the Tanzanian army and the Tanzanian police, in solidarity with their people, they refused to shoot their own people, or they refused to come out against their own people. Then Suluhu Hassan and her elites, they then called Museveni, not even Museveni, it's like the mercenaries. Uganda has mercenaries since they came into power. All those forces which they used to come to power, they never dismantled them, nor did they incorporate them fully in the army. So they are operating as a sort of a mercenary force for hire across the whole continent. So anyone who wants to stay in power longer can just call
Brother
Museveni's
Coco,
brother. Yes,
they were also in Kenya during June
yes,
2024. They were in Kenya during the bloody protest in 2007. And
yeah,
I'm told they are, as you're saying, they were also hired in Sudan as well. So please go ahead.
yes, they are in Sudan, they are in Somalia, they were even in Iraq, and then they are in Guinea Equatorial. So Teodoro Obiang Gema, when he wants to hold on to power, he just calls Museveni. I think it will be the same thing in Cameroon with the ongoing protests that we know about. The other thing is Ouattara has been using this Israel listening devices, the Israel security forces, to preempt his people's organizing, in short. So they are using all manner of chicanery to stay in power. And they are either there by their own volition, pursuing their own agenda, or pursuing the colonizer's agenda, but not with the people's agenda, unfortunately. It's my answer to say they aren't there for the people. There is that element of selfishness, but there is also that element of miseducation of the African again. For the African to forget who he is. And once there's that individualism comes to the fore and it overrides the Ubuntu. Let's not forget what Ubuntu is. The Ubuntu, we put the society first. The community comes first. And whoever excels, you excel within your own community. You become better with your community. But what the Western system has taught us is that you can be better than your community. And this is what these dictators are about. They have to continue ruling because that's what they know best. That's what they were taught by the colonizer. And we read that in Conscientism, I think a couple of weeks ago, when we said a few of them get a mega European education. And with that European education, then they go ahead and they get the power from the departing European. And then they continue to oppress their people. So in the case of Ghana, I don't know much about Rawlings, but I know Rawlings was brought into power by the people at first. But the 20 years after that, it's like he betrayed Nkrumah's legacy because he did not bring any of the stuff which they rolled back under Nkrumah. But after Nkrumah was toppled, they changed lots of things which Nkrumah had put in place. So to me, it looked like he was one of those who also wanted to be laughed by the Western investors or the Western whoever pulls the strings in the West. Is all I can say about that. But people like Traore and the Sahel Alliance, you can see they really want something. But it's a matter of how are they linking with the wider Pan-African agenda. We don't know what's going to happen with Madagascar, but we have seen something happening in Guinea and in Senegal. Senegal, they came into power with people giving them a huge majority, a huge mandate, but they came in and again, they went back to the colonizer. So it goes back again to that identity question that my brother was talking about in the beginning. It goes back to who are we? Who are we really fighting for? And once we know that is the people's mandate, is the we call it the culture. The culture encapsulates how the people want to live, and the common law is that law which also is a summary of what the people are saying to you as their rulers. But we have forgotten all of that because now we are ruled by the common law, not ruled by the Roman Dutch law or whatever laws that the colonizer has come with. They have eroded everything that we know. So it's taking a lot of time for us to learn. Probably even that 2063 which they are asking for could be longer if we were trying to organize towards it. A revolution is the only way to go. But once that revolution happens, we need to have trained people to lead and make sure we go back to the African way of doing things. African ways of doing things with modernity, modernize the African way of doing things, not just take everything that the colonizer came with without questioning it and throwing away everything that's African, even if it was good. So there are lots of things which, if we point them out, are actually a problem to us as Africans. And we do have a lot of Mobutus. We do have lots of people who are waiting to be installed by the West, the puppeteers, to make sure the system continues running for the puppeteers, not for the people. The people are, the last thing on their minds. That is the problem that we have in Africa. Africa has huge amounts of resources, but they are not being used for the people. That's all I can say for now.
Can I just comment on
Thank
the...
you. Yes, Mr. Chisomo, we are having 9 minutes, so I'll take the last comment as we wrap up the session. We'll continue from where we stop our reading. Mr. Chisomo?
Yeah. No, it's just interesting. One speaker brought the issue about the character who then goes in, and then once he gets in, it's a completely different story. And also the Tanzania case where they're having to invite people from outside to come and deal with the people inside. And I remember that again during our last 5 years, that there were strange things happening. We saw people that we kept asking, are these Malawians? Are these people from elsewhere? It's very un-Malawian, what's going on? And there's one guy who is on social media who just attacked the government and was saying, oh, they've invited people from... He would say they've invited people from Rwanda. He has seen the uniforms. Oh, there's people from Israel. There's people from here and there. And having mentioned the Museveni's region that has got mercenaries, so now I'm beginning to understand that's what might have been happening. We had them in the country because there was violence beginning to people just being hacked on the streets, people going out with pangas, and some people coming in as we've got these traditional dancers we call Gule Wankulu, but they can be very violent as well. So certain groups were coming dressed in different things and portraying to be certain people. And and then when he lost, then we heard that he has been called to Tanzania to go and help. And I thought, so he's being called because of the violence that was happening in Malawi to go and assist over there, but I don't know how that worked out. But now I understand the mercenary thing. I think it was going on in Malawi, as social media was saying. But at the end of the day, the mercenaries were not at the ballot box. The ballot box said something different, and that was the end of it.
Thank you, Sister Chisomo. Any other person want to say something in regards to what you'll be reading today? Just in summary, we've been reading about what the author says why some revolutions are successful. First, we have our own counter thinking on whether they are successful and what is the definition of successful, what makes them successful. We still don't agree on that because majority of us believe and still feel that a successful revolution can only be seen as successful not by overthrowing one dictator, but by ensuring that the welfare of the people is improved. So that's what we look. And then now the author has given us 9 factors that then sometimes can lead to that successful of a revolution. He calls them the trigger, the instigating group, the receptivity of the authoritarian regime, the nature of the despotic regime, the auxiliaries and helpful factors, the nature of opposition strategy, 10-factor cultural connection and demonstration. We have handled up to number 5 probably, and part of 6. So we'll tackle 6, 7, 8, and 9 in our next class. But then we will look at various examples. We will look at these key auxiliary factors, which are said opposition, unit of opposition forces, the church, the media, the judiciary, the union, the lawyers, the teachers, the professional bodies, the ruling class, the rift between the ruling class and the ruling elite, the split within the security forces, and the neutralized security forces. And now he goes ahead to talk about the nature of opposition tactics. Those are what you look at today. And therefore, we look forward to the next class to move forward to the next part of it. Anybody with any points in regards to what you've read or any thinking as a final part, please feel free to speak. We have around 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, let me just make a request. I think Brother Eugene would like to join the group, and also the library. So maybe if you could facilitate that.
Philip, that's you.
Yes, please.
Okay, I will share with you. We don't have a specific WhatsApp group for the Pan-African Book Review, but we had a WhatsApp group for the Pan-African Library, which we actually thought that could be then an extension of our review session on our WhatsApp platform. The nature of consciousness is not WhatsApp-based group. It's a virtual class-based organization. So WhatsApp, we always treat it as an extension of our conversation. That's why one of our main WhatsApp groups that has existed for 4 years only have 50-something members. And those are based on members who attend our session. So yes, I think we need to be active on our WhatsApp library. Now that we moved our library to Telegram, you'll share his contact with me so that I can add him in our broadcast list. So we have all members in what you call a broadcast list. Currently we have around 200 and something members in broadcast list. The broadcast list then helps you to get direct inbox messages. Like you see now, you get direct inbox messages to what is coming up, the next meeting, the updates I share every day. So you share his contact so that I can add him in my broadcast message list, where now you can be getting direct messages about what's going on. But you must know that our sessions and our class are purely virtual, with that part of it just being WhatsApp for an extension of conversation, which I think I'll add some of us interested in that library.
Okay.
Is that
And
okay?
also the book you mentioned.
Do they know
a book.
the Saturday?
I don't know if you can.
No, yes.
Yeah,
The
you
book,
said it's
I have
like
shared the book in the chat. Have you seen it? I've shared the book.
So that we.
No, the book is already in this.
Okay.
No,
okay.
He means another book. You talked about another book on psychology, I think, rather.
ISIS papers.
I'll look at it afterwards.
No, ISIS papers used to color is in our Telegram channel, but also get in touch via inbox. I can be able to send it to you directly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Now, to
You
members who have joined us today, what Sister Chisomo was saying, we have now 3 main classes running. Before we had 4, the Swahili one, which was on every Tuesday, but it ended. Our main class is on Thursday, 6 p.m. GMT or Africa time. If you're in my broadcast list, or if you're not in my broadcast list, I think most of you are in my broadcast list. All of you probably are in my broadcast list. So you'll always get a link to invite you to our Thursday main philosophy class, where we discuss philosophy and ideology, which is the book Consciousness. The Saturday we'll be discussing the unification of Africa. And already we've been engaging in a very important topic as we structure what do you think are proposed as the alternative of a unification of Africa in this class on Sunday. So please get in touch and be part of any of our virtual sessions where we just extend the conversation for members to share their thought process. That's what we do. So I like to say that very clearly. On YouTube, you can look for Consciousness Study. I'll also share the link to those who are in our broadcast list, direct to inbox, where you can find our YouTube channel where we have over 300 so far and almost 50 previous class recordings for your just personal review. So that's also what I will wish to mention at this particular moment. Is there anybody with any other burning concern? We are actually at the top of the hour. Okay. If there is silence, permit me to thank you all for those who joined us today. And let's look forward to next Monday. The number was encouraging with the new members joining us. Let's maintain this so that we can continue having our conversation. We are actually not used to be so many people. So we are used to that small number that sometimes also actively participate. So thank you very much, and let's look forward to next Monday. Same time, I'll share the recordings as well once they are on YouTube for your personal review, for you to like or share with your friends. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.